My mission is simple, to help you protect your family and keep more of your money. I'm here to help level the playing field for families and those who seek the truth. There's always a new way to make money, but at the end of the day, it's your family's security and your legacy that matter. And I promise to help you protect what's really important to you. Legacy Money starts now. Hey guys, welcome to Legacy Money. I'm Barry Page, and this is the show that helps you live more, give more, and leave more. Today we have a special guest, Mr. Michael Sparks. Hey Michael, say hello to everyone.
Hey Barry and everyone, appreciate you guys having me on today.
Fantastic. Today we're going to be talking about business and how you can create multiple streams of income. So if you are just joining us or you're joining us live or on the recording, I encourage you to share this link. You can share it and with your friends and your loved ones and help them to learn more. But really this show's about education and information, just making sure that you're kind of up to date on things. So we're going to dive into a couple things. I met Michael through the Infinite Banking think tank. He also is a practitioner. This is he and his wife, Alicia, his beautiful wife, and Nelson Nash. God rest his soul. So we became friends, and I've learned a lot about Michael, but I've just learned a lot more about him, and he's going to share that with you today. I've always liked his spirit. He's got a spirit like me. He really likes to stand up for freedom. But Michael, tell us a little bit about you, your family, and your background. Michael, you there? Hey, Michael. Michael. Murphy's Law, we're having some audio technical difficulties.
I'm here.
We'll come back to
Here.
that in a minute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you fine.
Frozen. You're frozen. Let me hear you in and out. You're in and out. Can you hear me?
I hear you fine, Michael. Tell us a little bit about
Okay.
you and your family and your background.
Well, hey, I'm in my mid-50s, and I'm about to have a birthday here pretty soon, and been just living the dream. You know, I'm one of those kids that didn't do very well in school, not because I think I'm dumb or slow or anything. I just didn't apply myself because the things didn't interest me. So, when you don't do well in school, you don't have very many choices in life. And my big choice in life when I was 18 years old, one of my favorite things in school was to play in the band. So I played in the high school band. I've been playing the saxophone since I was in fifth grade. So, and the reason I picked the saxophone because my buddy played it and it had pretty pearl keys on it. So that's the only reason I picked it, was because it was cool looking and I didn't know anything about it. But when I turned 18, I was like, oh man, life is staring at me in the face pretty darn quick. I better figure something out. And a buddy of mine that was a year ahead had joined the Army and played in the military band. And so I thought, well, heck, if he could do it, I could do it. So I auditioned and passed. And and went on the way to join the Army. And of course, I tell my mom, I'm 18 years old. And I said, Mom, I joined the Army. And she's like, oh no, son, you're going to go to war and die. And I said, Mom, I joined the band. And little did I know that the Army band does go to war. So I went through the school and got to my duty station, which is here at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. You know the place well, Clarksville, Tennessee. And that's where I was stationed. And then that was in 1989. And then 1990, you know what happened? And we went to Desert Storm. So came back and did a tour in Germany. So I lived in Germany for 3 years, and came back. And I actually married a gal that was in the Army band as well. So we we lived all over the country. We lived in Alabama. We lived in Virginia Beach. We lived in El Paso, Texas. Come back
Wow.
to Clarksville, and we separated ways, and I stayed here. So that's how that worked. Well, I did 8 years of active duty, and then I signed in to the reserves, and then later the National Guard, and finished out there. I did ended up doing 33 total years, 8 years active, and the rest in the Guard and the reserves. And when we were living in El Paso, I still didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. I knew I wasn't going to make a full-time income as a saxophone player. I thought I was okay, good, but I'm not that good. When you start playing around cats that really are phenomenal players, it's like, yeah, I don't have the skills, and I don't have the time to be able to develop the skills, even if it's possible. So I figured that out pretty quick. That I'm more of a I'll back anybody up, but I'm not the lead man, right? I'm not the Kenny
Yeah.
G. I'll back
Yeah.
Kenny G all day long, but I'm not the Kenny G. So I was looking around for something to do, and this is in the late '90s. Online started happening, and I was actually going to school to be a machinist. That's what I was doing. I was going to school to be a machinist in Alabama, outside of Birmingham, and it was a beautiful spring day, kind of like it is right now today here in Tennessee. The
Beautiful, isn't it?
dogwood out. It was 70 degrees. I was on my motorcycle, and I thought, I need a hobby. And the internet was still pretty young back then, so I thought I'd rolled myself into Books a Million, and started walking up and down the aisles of Books a Million, and I got onto the business and investing aisle, and I thought, that's a great hobby, because it's a hobby that makes you money. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't cost money, right? So I really got bit by the investing bug. And it was kind of funny. There was another guy, I'll never forget it. He was standing there, and he's like, I asked him, I said, well, if I wanted to get into investing, what books would I read? And he says, well, I'd read Susie Orman book
Oh,
on
goodness.
Susie Orman. That was my first one. And the second one was a guy named by Wade Cook, and it was called The Wall Street Money Machine. And it
Right.
was about trading futures and options. And I thought, well, I got the 2 books, and I started studying them, and I learned pretty quick. I don't have the patience or the attention to detail that somebody would have for doing futures and options, right? That's not me. I said, well, I went more of the Susie Orman route, and really got into doing my own investing. So I opened up an online brokerage account, and I put money into it. I started getting out of debt. I really got interested in the debt-free thing,
Sure.
like Susie and her buddy Dave talk about. And as a matter of fact, I bought a whole life insurance policy in 1989. And I was just brand new in the Army, and I thought, all the things on this whole life insurance policy, the living benefits that we all talk about, right? They sounded fantastic. So I signed up for, I don't know, $50 or $100 a month way back then. And I had that policy by that time, about almost 10 years, I guess. That would have been
Well,
89 to 97 is when I started reading the book with Susie Orman, and I cashed it in, and I don't have it anymore. So unfortunately, but that's my beginnings of really
yeah.
understanding
Yeah. And
banking.
yeah. And you're a parent, and you have grandkids even, right?
I am. Yeah. Yeah. I've got one child myself, and then I've got 2 stepchildren. They're all both adults. And then the grandchildren, I've got 4 grandchildren.
That's awesome. Well, we really thank you for your service, first of all, Michael. And, I'm glad to hear that you got started with your education, right? Before you
Yep.
really got into money, you went out and you read some books. I don't know what it is today. People think that they can learn everything, in a 30-second, 60-second TikTok video, but you took the time to read some books. So I'm glad to hear that. And really, again, this show is about education and helping others to learn. And we want to talk about multiple streams of income. specifically, and we're going to get into some decentralized finance because I know that's a favorite subject for both of us. But tell us a little bit about your businesses today, because I know you've got a couple of businesses. So tell us the one that you've been involved with the longest, I believe, is AmSoil. People think what they may about network marketing, but you have some tenure. So tell us a little bit about that. How'd you get started? And
Well, it's kind of funny. I was kind of leading up to that in that story. So I wanted to become a financial advisor, and we had moved from Alabama to El Paso, Texas. So we hadn't been there very long. And I told my wife at the time, I was like, I want to be a financial advisor. So there was an ad in the paper for Waddell and Reed as a typical financial advisor. And this is 1999, mind you, 1999. I applied to become one. They said I had to take like a written test and an oral test. And they said, you'd probably be pretty good, but because you're new here and you don't have a warm market to call, we don't think you'd be a good fit for our company. And I was kind of shot down from that. And I'm like, wow, what the heck? Well, at the same time, I'm looking for oil for my brand new truck that I bought. I ordered it, especially how I wanted it, 4-wheel drive off-road package. It was a 97 F-150, and it's just a year or two older now. I'd already been using synthetic oil in it. And I was asking, well, how long can you go on it? And the products that I was using before that, nobody had a recommendation. And I found this guy online, and he's like, well, you can go 25,000 miles on an oil change. And I thought, no, get out of here. I understand it's better, but it can't be that much better. And so I started doing research, and I learned that you could become an AmSoil distributor. And then I finally learned that it was a network marketing company, multi-level marketing, direct sales, whatever you want to call it. And I had never been in sales before. So I didn't know any better, didn't have any sales, background or anything like that. But I just knew that, hey, if this product works as it says it's going to work, and everybody needs oil, right? We're all driving cars, trucks, boats, motorcycles, ATVs. I'm going to be rich immediately on this stuff, right? Well, we all know that sales is sometimes a little bit more difficult than what we think it was. But I signed up, and I was really focused on business to business, doing business to business marketing, going out and registering other businesses, helping them get started, working with commercial, industrial, that type of thing. I went to some industrial training. That would have been May of 2000. And I met this guy that was there, and he was what they call your upline. You're my up, way up there though. He was way up there, but he took a shine into me because I was 30 years old, young and motivated. And he pulled me under his wing, and he showed me how to work the business. And, listening to the tapes, to the Jim Rohns and the Brian Tracy's and the Zig Ziglars, and, getting motivated. Then I understand, that, hey, I could do this by myself, but it's more fun if we can build a team, right? So build a team, help others get what they want, then you can have everything you want. So I on top of doing the commercial and the retail side of it, I started, learn how to become a leader and become a sponsor and help people that, get what they want. And, and integrated that and learned how to create leverage. And that's the whole thing with the multi-level marketing. A lot of people, I was introduced to it back in the Army days, and the guys riding the little circles, and it was the big AM, not AmSoil, the other AM company. And I'm like, get out of here, that's a pyramid scheme. And it's not a pyramid scheme. Everything, your family tree is a pyramid scheme. Every corporation's a pyramid scheme, right? You got a person at the top and people at the bottom, right? So you got to educate yourself. And I always think back now, long before I ever met Nelson Nash, you got to change your thinking. You got to think differently. And, if you're open to understanding things, well, then, it may be for you. It's not easy. It's not get rich quick for sure. I've been doing it now since I got actually signed up in 1999, November, and, built it up from there, and just kept building and building and building. And it's a great company. It's a 50-year company. So I recommend people go at it, do some research. If you're looking at other companies, I'm not saying you have to, look at AmSoil. It's motor oils and lubricants. There's a certain person that fits for, right? Some other people might be interested in lipstick or, travel, or, I don't know, there's hundreds and hundreds of companies that are
Right.
out, health and nutrition, but but it's really interesting. You get exposed to other people in the industry with other companies. I go to national events where it's just generic training, and you get to rub elbows with people that are, multimillionaires that have built up with a network marketing company.
Yeah. So that's
And
25 years. That's awesome. I mean, most people don't make it 25 weeks. And so that's a good tenure. And really, I've been involved with a few network marketing companies. Actually, the first one was at Amway that you didn't quite mention, and that was in the 80s. So
yeah,
believe it or not, we did that, and they used to call them mama fights because you go home and tell your wife what you learned, and you're all fired up, and she says, "Do the dishes," or you want to help out around here, So I ain't going to no meetings, but anyway. That's good to hear. But the biggest thing that I heard you say and that I got out of doing those things was the education, because
yeah,
you wanted to learn about sales, right? And you
yeah,
wanted to learn, and you can get that through those network marketing companies. Like I said, there's lots of them. There's all kinds of flavors. I heard about Amsoil. I had no idea it was even network marketing, but I used to ride a two-stroke, so I was brap, brap, brap.
yeah.
We mixed oil, and that's what we liked about it back in the day. And so when I first saw you wearing a cap, I had really no idea. You clued me in on that. So I'm glad to hear that. But let's shift gears, because you talked a little bit about another income stream, something else that you do. And I know you've taken it to really the next level. And that's IBC, the infinite banking concept, and Nelson Nash. So tell us, I've heard the story, but tell us how you met Nelson, or you got involved with infinite banking.
Well, it's a really interesting story. Well, we all went through well, not everybody, but you and I went through 2008, right? And I was
Yeah.
back in the investing thing. I had, got rid of my life insurance policy and investing directly in the stock market. I lost money just like everybody else, probably 40-50%. And then I started wondering, why did this happen, and what can I do about it? I got really interested in gold and silver. So I started listening, educating again myself on economics and the fractional reserve system, and, all the things we talk about in IBC. And this is '08, right? So it took me from '08, '09, 10, 11, and then 12. I'm doing my own thing. I'm buying, some precious metals or whatever, and I'm investing in my business. I actually bought another guy's business, another Amsoil business. So I own two of them. That's how good I think they are. And I'm about to buy a third. The guy's 92. He's decided he's finally done working at his Amsoil business. That's how much he loves it. He's 92 years old, still working his Amsoil business. And I'm like, he's my hero. And everybody that I know that worked until they were in their elder years, whether it's Nelson Nash, the founder of Amsoil, which was AJ Amatuzio, he worked into his 90s. Successful people that do what they love to do. That's a great life. Nelson used to say it's a peaceful way of living, right?
Yes.
But
Your life.
so the year before you and I met, I went up to Minnesota at a network marketing conference, and I met this guy, and we just hit it off. And, he heard me talking about economics and what the problem is and all this other stuff. Well, he didn't say anything about infinite banking at all. And probably, I don't know if it would have fell on me at the right time or not. They say, God has a way of making things happen for you. But the next year was 2013 when they had the Night of Clarity. That's when you and I met in Nashville, Tennessee, right?
Right.
So you said the Amsoil cap. I had an Amsoil cap on. Well, so he calls me 2 weeks before this Night of Clarity and says, "Hey, look, I'm coming to Nashville. Do you want to get coffee?" I'm like, "Well, sure, I'll get coffee. What are you coming for?" And he's like, "Well, I'm coming to this Night of Clarity." And I had known about it because Ron Paul was the featured speaker. I was a Ron Paul person from '08 and then 2012.
Right.
And I said, "Well, what exactly is it? I'd like to hear Ron Paul speak, but, I didn't know what it was or, what they were doing." He says, "Well, I didn't tell you the whole story. I'm in the network marketing, but I also do this become your own banker." And I thought, well, how do you do that? He said, "Well, you got to get the book." So he sends me the book, and I read it, and I read it again. And I tell my wife, I'm real excited. It's like, where's this been my whole life? Let me, why don't you read it? So she reads it. And I said, this is either a scam or it's too good to be true or it works. And I said, we got this event in about a week. I think I'm going to go to it. I said, I'd rather spend, I think it was $500 to go to the whole weekend course. The Ron Paul thing was just a one night deal. I think it was $70 or whatever. So I went to the whole weekend course and I'm on the elevator and I have an AMSOIL ball cap on with a sport coat on. And I get in the elevator and this guy says, AMSOIL, good stuff. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to sell this guy some AMSOIL, right? And I get off the elevator, put my business card, give it to him. It happens to be John Webster, one of my best friends now. I didn't know at the time, but so we traded cards and I got my policies set up with the other guy that invited me, 2 policies that right after the night of clarity. But some people don't hit it off, right? You got to have somebody have a good relationship with. And I kept calling John for questions. John he knows everything about everything. And so that's 2013. Around 2014 rolls around. Me, I'm always open for multiple income streams, right? That's what it says on the screen. Income stream. So I say, well, is there a way to make money with, referring people? I'm telling people about becoming their own banker. Can I make money doing that too? And he's like, well, yeah, you have to become an agent. So I become an agent and I'm still back with the other guy. And I sent him one referral and the guy got a policy and he sent me a referral fee after I got my life. I was just planning to do it just to refer business. I didn't need another business. I'm making, full-time plus income in AMSOIL. I don't need to do this. He sends me a nice referral check. And I'm like, oh, there's something to this. Maybe I need to add this on. So my wife and I, we discussed it. And as they say, the rest is history. I became an agent with John Webster. And then I decided if I'm going to do this, I want to do it right. I'm going to go through the Nelson Nass Institute. So I spent 2014 learning about life insurance in general, learning about infinite banking, getting a few clients of myself, and then I go and take my authorized practitioner test on actually January 1st of 2015. So I've been an authorized infinite banking practitioner since January of 2015.
That's awesome. And that was a great event with Ron Paul. And I think a lot of people maybe, started to learn a little bit about banking and infinite banking in particular at that event. Of course, Ron Paul said we get to talk about my favorite subject there. And, of course, he's the author of the book I have right up here, In the Fed. And I know that's, something that you and I are strong about, and we're well-spirited on that. But you were talking about Nelson's book that you read, Becoming Your Own Banker. Again, it's about education. If you want to learn about infinite banking, you need to do that. But specifically, fractional reserve lending, which is Nelson's second book, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth, subtitled A Grassroots Method of Avoiding Fractional Reserve Banking. And then he highlights, think about it. And I think a lot more people are thinking about it recently. In today's world, they see inflation, and they're starting to learn that inflation is caused by all of this outrageous spending that the government is doing while the Federal Reserve is printing the money. And most people they hear the word federal, they think they're federal, but they're really a private cartel. And they hear the word reserve and they think they have reserves. But one thing that they do have, and that's kind of our next topic of conversation here, is something that I don't think people know that the government owns a lot of, or the Federal Reserve, but they own something called Bitcoin. And I see you speaking a lot about Bitcoin, and I know you're involved with that. And I noticed that you even accept Bitcoin on your AMSOIL site. If people want to buy AMSOIL, they can pay you in Bitcoin. So let's talk a little bit about Bitcoin, because it is going crazy right now. As a matter of fact, I took these screenshots just today. Bitcoin is close to $73,000, $72,931 this morning. That's a 194% increase over this time last year.
Yeah.
Now you tell me where you can get 194% return on your money in 1 year. And Ethereum is up 136%. I happen to like Ethereum better at this point in time only because of what we're just talking about, the Fed and the government owning it. But tell us a little bit about your experience. How did you get involved with Bitcoin?
Well, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I do not listen to the radio in my car. So if I'm in my car, I'm either talking to somebody or I'm listening to some educational podcast on something I'm interested in, whether it's Bitcoin, farming, self-reliance, money. I even listen to some of the stock market people and hear, their drivel or whatever you want to call it, so I had been listening to this guy for years. His name is Jack Spirko, and he's got a podcast called The Survival Podcast. And he had been talking about Bitcoin. It was really hard to figure out how to get it and how to do it. And then my biggest hang up was, well, I don't want to trade fiat for Bitcoin because then the government's going to find it, right? Or whatever. Right. So I was hesitant, and I had the app on my phone. For 2 years. And I was just waiting to accept, somebody going to trade me some Bitcoin for some products that I sell. That was my whole thing. I'm not going to buy it with fiat. I'm going to trade it. And then I really started digging in, and I thought, this thing is way too important to let it pass me by waiting for somebody to use Bitcoin. Like the first Bitcoin transaction was to buy a pizza for $20 or something like that. I'm like, it's going to happen. I felt like, so it was kind of funny. John and I were up in South Dakota. So this is 2021. And we're up there for a thing called Freedom People, Austrians and libertarians and stuff like that. So we're up there, and this guy walks up in a pirate outfit, and he looks at my books. He says, "I'll become your own banker. I don't know how to do this. What do you accept crypto?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've got the app on my phone, but I don't know how to do it." So he's like, I said, "Well, you show me how to do it. I'll sell you the book for that." And he was the reason he was dressed as a pirate is he was repping for Pirate Chain, which is an anonymous cryptocurrency or whatever. And I said, well, I can accept Bitcoin. That was the only one that was on my app that he had. He sold to a Bitcoin back then, 2021. And then I really say, okay, I got to start getting more of this. I got to figure it out. And then I broke down, and I ended up buying using fiat dollars to start getting Bitcoin, and figured out how to do that. And it's been so easy nowadays. There's so many places that do it. I've been using Cash App. That's what I use. I just buy it with my Cash App. Somebody pays me in Cash App, and I dollar cost average it. I'm about to buy some Bitcoin at 73,000 today. I get a couple $100 in there. I buy a couple $100. People think, well, I got to buy a whole Bitcoin. No, there's things called Satoshis, which is a 100 millionth of a Bitcoin. There's 100 million Satoshis in a Bitcoin. So you can buy a Satoshi is still a fraction of a cent. So I typically dollar cost average, a couple $100 at a time. And, if it goes way down, then I go more in. When it was 16, I was yelling at the rooftops, these people, you need to buy Bitcoin. And yeah, now they're asking me about it when it's 73, but it's still a great deal. If you understand, money and how money works and decentralized finance, that's the key. And I wish Nelson was around to be able to talk to him about, more Bitcoin, because I'd like to hear what his thoughts are on it.
Yeah. Well, so, you mentioned a couple things there. So I'll get back to this. You mentioned fiat. Now, you want to talk about fiat? You know what this is right here?
Some kind of paper, fiat, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's from Nigeria.
Nigeria, okay.
It's $1,000 bill. And I've actually got $1 million bill as well. And I'm sure some of the, we used to think about money in terms of silver, right? So here's a silver coin there, and I've got some gold one as well. But I'm sure some of the, to get political here, I don't know if you can tell who's on that. Oh,
Trump. Trump silver.
I'm sure some people would like that. So I've invested in different things over the years. And I've made money and I've lost money, but you know, talking about Bitcoin, you're talking about buying it. Now, how do you make money with Bitcoin? How do you make money with any asset, Michael? You've got to do something before you can realize a gain. What do you have to do?
Is that a question? You have to do something.
What do you have to do?
So
you made money in Bitcoin?
I own Bitcoin. I don't consider it
you
money.
Own it,
I don't.
right?
I own it. I don't.
Money.
When they say it's, my one thing, and if you've been in Bitcoin, Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin.
Yep.
It's money, and you're trying to value it in something else, a Zimbabwe dollar or whatever. It's meaningless because it's fiat by decree, and all fiat currencies have went to their intrinsic value of the paper that it's printed on. That's all it's worth.
You hit a key term right there, value, right? So we in the United States, we have to trade in Bitcoin or in money. Now I know you trade in Bitcoin, you know, with your business, and some places are starting to allow that. But that's really what I'm getting at. It doesn't matter if it's stocks, if it's real estate, if it's Bitcoin. At the end of the day, to spend it at the grocery store around here anyway,
that's the value.
You got to have cash. You got to have money, whether it be now. I consider credit in a lot of cases. That's fiat, right? Because it's derivatives. It's like they're spending money that they don't have, right? And then the bills come due, and that's why so many people have debt. But the title of this show is Legacy Money, and I just wanted to dive into a little bit there with the fact that the Bitcoin. But the problem, and I own Bitcoin, I own a lot of it, and you mentioned the Satoshis, but you know, on some of these websites, you know, for instance, Coinbase, you don't have to buy an entire Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
You can take $10 and own fractional shares.
Yeah.
And some of these other cryptos, you can buy even less. They're fractions of pennies, or they're 50 cents or $1 for an entire coin. But at the end of the day, right, you have to trade it to get some cash. And you brought up Nelson, and you probably remember, Nelson would talk about silver, and he bought some silver back when he was writing the book Becoming Your Own Banker, and it was about $20, and still to this day it's about $20, right?
Yeah.
That's what you can get out of it. But we know what has happened is that certain people have manipulated the money supply, the silver, and the gold markets, and that's the big banks. JP Morgan was caught red-handed doing it. But nothing ever happened, right? A slap on the wrist, the cost of doing business for them. But do you know who the largest holders of Bitcoin are today?
Well, you told me, and I think before we got on here, you say the U.S. government? Yeah,
well, the U.S. government at last, when this is a Wall Street Journal article, they owned 200,000 Bitcoins. So at 72,000 each, some quick math, that's about $14 billion, right?
Yeah.
And the other large holder, and they don't, you don't know exactly how much they own. Now, the one thing about the Bitcoin that the government owns is a lot of it was confiscated. It was confiscated from crooks, people that they caught, and they confiscated their goods, just like they do a lot of assets when they catch criminals, right? Nobody knows exactly how they got it. They have their ways. The IRS, same way they called Al Capone and whatnot. But that's why I like Ethereum, and some of the other coins, is because they hadn't put their arms around that yet. What I've learned is that they're boxing in Bitcoin, and so the other holder of Bitcoin, one of the largest, is BlackRock. Now, if you know anything about BlackRock, this is again from the Wall Street Journal. They own about, at last count, about 160, give or take, 1,000 Bitcoins. And they've started this ETF that people probably have heard of, and many people in the financial world are saying that's what's caused the price of Bitcoin to go up. But they have an ETF, a fund called IBIT. And one of the reasons that it's been so successful, they couldn't just award them the ability to sell this ETF. They had to award it to Vanguard and several other companies. But they've been able to decrease their fees because BlackRock has many people don't know this, over $10 trillion under management, assets under management, AUM.
Yeah.
So that's more than the government collects, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
And so how does the government get money? Well, there's two ways, really: taxes and inflation. They're able to inflate the money supply, right? So they only collect about $5 trillion every year in taxes, 4 to 5 trillion, but they're spending how much, Michael, every year? Do you know how much the government spends every year?
Oh, I don't know. What is it? I mean, it depends what year it is. I mean, some years they print 6 trillion at one time, but isn't it about 2 trillion?
Well, I know we have, just our debt now is 34 trillion, and we're going to spend $1 trillion this year in interest alone.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
they spend a lot. Just the government payroll, they're the largest employer in the world. So just think about that. The point is they've spent the 5 trillion that they collect in taxes come tax time. So they're almost they're broke already, and April 15th isn't even here yet, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So
Well, one thing to think about, Barry, though, you talk about the government and these big monster corporations, and I recommend anybody that is interested in the least little bit is to get this book called The Bitcoin Standard.
Okay.
It's by named Saifedean Ammous, Ammous. You can get it on all the Amazons or whatever. 75, I think it was probably page 200 before he even talked about Bitcoin. He went through the history of money, different countries, the Roman era, the using beads, all this other stuff. So, we've had currencies, and it's about every couple hundred years a currency, right? It goes to some other type. And we're in that process right now. But when you think about it, the problem with the government is they can inflate it, and Bitcoin can't be inflated. And I read something the other day, and he's like, well, why did they choose 21 million? That was just what Satoshi Nakamoto chose. He had no rhyme or reason for choosing it. But if there's only 21 million.
Do you think he was a real person? Do you think Satoshi is a real person?
Oh yeah. I'm sure. There's somebody's going to court now about it, and they're going to prove
There's a lot of theories that there were 12 programmers or more, but who knows? He's the one credited, right?
The problem, the beauty is it's been released out into the marketplace. It's decentralized. Nobody owns it. There's no CEO of Bitcoin to say, hey, we're going to change the amount. Only the people in the nodes, and there's thousands of nodes, and there's thousands of computers that have the program across the world. So no one person can change Bitcoin. I don't care if they said the NSA or the CIA, started it. Who cares? They put it out. They can't control it now. And if there's 21 million, over 90% of them already been mined already. So we're on like 91 or percent or something like that. And it's going to take till like 2145 for them all to get mined. But if you said the government has 200,000 and BlackRock has 60,000, so that's 360,000. Divide that by 21 million. That's 0.017142857. So less than 17% of all the Bitcoin is in the government hands. They can't do anything about it, right? They can just.
Well, so that brings me, but just as we're speaking, I'm looking, Bitcoin's up over 73,000 just in our conversation here. But that's why I brought up this screen here, okay? Yeah. Because I learned a lot. You talked about the books you've read. This book is by John Pennington. It's called Dollars, Gold, and Bitcoin.
Nice.
And what he does the same thing. He talks about the history of money and the government and the control, which really started in 1913 with the IRS and the Federal Reserve being created, a bad year for our country. But really how they boxed Bitcoin in. They don't want to, I think they've kind of given up because, like you said, there's a limited supply. There's going to be scarcity. Of course, the halving's coming up, but, about 90% of it, I think, has already been mined. Mm-hmm. But the point is, let's see, look here. 94% is circulating of the 21 million already. Okay. So, but here's what BlackRock has done. When they created this ETF, and of course, this had to get approved by the SEC, a government agency, right, who likes to control things. So all the advisors, brokers out there have to work under their umbrella. But they've been able to lower their fees because they already, again, have over $10 trillion of assets under management. Wow. So that's why a lot of people think between BlackRock and the government that they're going to be able to control that supply. They can buy and sell. Just think if the government or BlackRock sold those Bitcoin, what would that do to the price? And that's what they did. JP Morgan did with gold and silver. So I don't know. Again, I'm an advocate. I think anybody, once they educate themselves, should at least dabble in it. You know, especially young people. Now, if you're older, like you and me, or me, you know, I'm turning 60 here in a couple months. So, you know, we can't afford to lose money. And at the end of the day, it takes money to live, especially in the, you know, the economy, the Biden economy that we're living in today. Yeah. But, you know, just wanted to point out a few things. Now, I do want to just kind of move on and talk again about Nelson Nash, the Nelson Nash Institute, and these other streams of income, because in my eyes, before I even heard of Bitcoin, right, Nelson created the infinite banking concept. And that within itself is decentralized finance. It's taking control of what you can, right? Your capital. Yeah. And so we have control of it. And you and I know, are using, just like many people own IRAs, 401ks, and whatnot, the ultimate goal of any business or any asset is typically to create a source of income for the future. And that was the title of this show today, was multiple streams of income. And so, you know, you and I both have businesses. We both have assets that we're counting on for the future to generate income. But when we talk about the infinite banking concept, there's actually another side of it that many people, when they create maybe their first policy, and Nelson said it's to be a system of policies. You can't do this overnight. So many people think they can just start and, you know, next month take money out and whatnot. That's, you have to capitalize. And that's what you've done with your business. You've been in that Amsoil business 20 years. I've been in this business that we're in 20 years. And I've had other businesses. This is my fifth business that I started from scratch. I have other businesses now. And so we create these businesses to create a source of income. And I believe everyone out there needs another source of income. If you have a job, when you walk away from your job, when you retire, you're going to depend on the money that you've saved, right, to provide income for your retirement. Okay. But you talked about working longer, living longer. Nelson worked till the day he died. You know, he was at the think tanks. He worked. He did seminars for me literally up until about 1.5 years before he passed, till he graduated. Yeah. And in his book, Building Your Warehouse of Wealth, that's what he calls a grassroots method for avoiding fractional reserve banking. And you've taken that to another level yourself. So, and I've done that. You've loaned money to others. Tell us a little bit about that. And again, that's the second phase. That's not for somebody getting started with their first policy. But once somebody has done this for a little while, infinite banking, what else can they do with it?
Well, you know, I always equate it to, like you say, building capital and building an asset, right? So if we equate it to real estate, because that's what you're buying a piece of property. Your life insurance policy is an asset that you own, that you're buying over time. You know, it's just like having a 30-year loan for a house. The first couple of years, you can't sell that house for what you paid for it. Now, I mean, I'm talking in normal times, and I'm not talking 2020, 2021, where you could buy the house and turn around and sell it for twice the price or whatever. But I'm talking in normal times, you got to keep a house about 7 years before you've actually made profit on that house in order to sell it for more than you paid for it, right?
Yep.
Well, that's the same thing with this policy. You're buying this policy over time, and, you know, you're capitalizing it. That doesn't mean it takes 7 years for you to have anything, but for it to really start making some, I like to call it financial tailwinds, right? Before it starts really getting good, it's going to take a little while, just like, your real estate holdings and whatnot. So that's the first thing I always try to equate it to is a real estate. And I said, when you borrow against your policy, it's like having a home equity line of credit, except you don't have to qualify for it. And you don't have to go to the bank, fill out 15,000 pieces of paperwork. You just call a life insurance company up and tell them, if you have cash value available, you call them and they ask you how much do you want of that. They don't ask you what it's for. They don't ask you if you can pay it back. They don't ask anything. They just send it to you. So that's one thing there. But we built our policies up, and our first two that we bought were back in 2013. Those still are doing what they're doing, and we're really happy with them so far. And then once I got in, I always tell people you got to eat your own cooking, so it's like being an AMSOIL dealer, but you're using Pennzoil. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I have never sold cars for a living, but if I sold Chevrolets, I sure wouldn't be driving a Ford or a Toyota. I'd have to, drive a Chevrolet, as much as I'm not really a big Chevrolet fan, but that's okay. I would do it. But anyhow, so I got my two other policies that we used, and those are the ones we use for actual doing the infinite banking concept. Our first two are emergency fund. So one of my sayings that I've coined is the size of your emergency fund is what constitutes an emergency, right? The average person in the United States can't come up with $400 on a weekend. And if you have an emergency fund that is 1 to 2 years of your income, very, very few things can be an emergency, right? Unfortunately, we had a death in the family. My wife had to go today to Minneapolis. There's no question that she had to fly up there. We bought the ticket. I didn't care the price. We got the rent. I don't care. You got to go. And that's what having this big beefy emergency fund, to be able to do. So that's one thing. And then on your second point there with the building your warehouse of wealth, you got to read these books, and Nelson tells you how to have a good life. You buy equipment and you pay yourself back. In the second book, he talks about real estate, buying real estate or having an opportunities to be able to buy assets at a good price. So I do a little bit of real estate investing. I don't get my hands dirty on that. I'm just way too busy. So I let other professionals do that, but I own real estate. And then hard money, right? And Nelson talks about that in both books about loaning money to people, and whether it be, leasing cars to somebody or loaning money for the people that like to fix and flip. And I'm getting a pretty good return on that as well.
So, that's awesome. Yeah, that's good to hear. So you're taking the asset that you've built, you've capitalized, and you're utilizing it to actually form another stream of income, and then you'll get that money back, and when they pay you back, and it'll go back into your policy, which you'll be able to use later on in life for another stream of income. So
exactly, and they marry together, right? So my policy is still growing at a percentage. So that's a percentage, and then I'm making another percentage, whether it's a real estate deal or it's a hard money or what have you. Those marry together. They're not either or, right? This is an and asset. It's multiple. They do multiple things. That's why I think infinite banking and real estate go together so well, is because each dollar does multiple jobs, right? You get some tax breaks, infinite banking, you get, tax deferred growth, and you can take it tax free and pass it tax free. Real estate, you get all the tax breaks for owning a business or owning the real estate. So each dollar you put into it is actually becoming more efficient over time, right?
Right. And, I'm glad you said that, because, earlier I was asking you about how you can make money in Bitcoin. And, the old saying, buy low, sell high, that's exactly, how I've used it. I've taken money that I've earned from a policy. I've purchased crypto, different coins, Bitcoin and Ethereum being the two most, but I bought them when it was low. It's gone up, so I've sold my profit. So now there's no risk, because I know that the Bitcoin can come down. My life insurance is not going to go down. It's guaranteed. Once that money is in there, you can't lose it, right? Yeah. And so that's what I really like. Even real estate. I've been a real estate investor for over 25 years, And I've lost money in real estate. You know, we had an oil spill here. We had Hurricane Katrina here. I had mortgages on some houses when both of those things happened. So I have lost money in real estate. I've lost money in the stock market. But one thing I've never lost money in is I'm sorry, is my life insurance,
yeah.
right? So I own 9 policies. I say that all the time. I own policies on my kids, and it's a system of policies that I'm building, right, over time. And each one has a different use. Like you said, the savings, the emergencies, and then you got something, you know, for cash flow maybe, and then you've got the ones that you're lending out. So that's a great thing. So you have a company as well called Dynasty Wealth Partners. Your partner is your wife there with Nelson. But tell us, you know, that name Dynasty, and I'll show how people can get a hold of you through MPG Wealth there. But tell us, you know, how'd you come up with that name? And the name of the show is Legacy Money. Is your legacy important? What is that about?
Well, it's really interesting. I've got a photo on my computer, and it's me standing in front of my grandparents in their yard. I grew up on a farm, 90 acres in Ohio. And even long before I'm talking like maybe grade school or middle school, somewhere in there. And I was like, I always think, well, if every generation passed on money to the next generation, it gets better. This is long before I ever heard of Nelson and whatever, right? So I've got this photo. I always thought to myself, you know, my grandfather worked 35 years in a steel mill and farmed 90 acres. And there's zero that I have to show for that, right? My mom still works. She's in her 70s and works, you know. And I thought, well, something's got to change. And so it's a gift of God that I learned about infinite banking and life insurance, right? If you understand how life insurance works, not just for infinite banking, but for generational wealth, and that's what I came up with the Dynasty. I want this thing to keep going no matter what. And, you know, every successive generation, I hope to get better and better and better, you know, whether it's through education, whether it's through, you know, recycling our money, whether it's, you know, not doing business with banks and letting all that money flow away from you, where it comes back. You know, it's like I tell my daughter, I said, you know, you buy a car from me and that's coming back to our pool, which is going to be your pool. And if you understand your pool, it's going to go to the next generation from that, right? So it's the same with the Amsel business. It's a generational thing. I'm buying a business from a guy that's 92 years old, right? It's generational. He to sell it to. I'm going to be giving that business to my kids. My Dynasty Wealth Partners. My daughter's a licensed life insurance agent. You know, if something happens to me, or you know, I tell some of my clients, I said, look, you know, I probably won't be here when these policies paid out, but you know, my daughter's on board and she's gonna make sure you guys take care of, right? So I just think generationally, for some reason, I don't know how it came, just that picture, that picture of me in front of my grandparents, it just always stuck with me. I'm like, I got to do something. I got to change habits of family members and all that stuff. I've used it already for kids. My daughter's bought cars. I bought a car for my stepson. I've loaned money for family members to start a business. You know, they were working for somebody and they needed like 10 grand to go out on their own. And I'm like, okay, but you know, when we do this, you don't just owe the money, but you owe the money with interest, right? Because of our system that we have, fractional reserve, there's a future cost of money, right? And you know, and if you're going to pay the banks 7 or 10%, well, you're gonna have to pay us 7 or 10%. If you like us, hopefully more than the bank, you know, 10% seems like a good, easy round number. We pay ourselves back 10%. And if you need longer time, then we just, you know, instead of making a 5-year loan, make it a 6-year loan. Or just change how long. And if you need a break in the middle, we could just tack it on at the end because guess what? Who are we? We're the banker.
We're the bank.
We're the banker.
Awesome.
We can make the rules, right? The bank don't care
it.
about you. We're the bankers. And so, you know, now you don't pay, right? Nelson has a saying, you know, you don't get it. You don't get it. So if you don't pay it back, you don't get more credit in the future.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you sharing all that with us, Michael. And thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for joining us out there. I want to remind you to subscribe to this channel, Legacy Money on YouTube. And if you're interested in learning more about creating multiple streams of income or the infinite banking concept, you can reach out to Michael at MPG Wealth, Sparks at mpgwealth.com is your email, correct, Michael?
Yeah, Sparks. Just my last name, Sparks, SPARKS at mpgwealth.com. I work under a general agent. Barry and I are all, oh, sorry about that. Too crazy. Barry and I are really good friends with John. He's my mentor. He's my best friend. I just spent a couple days with him at his house. Changed out a water heater. That was entertaining. But the greatest guy in the world. He's my friend, and so I joined up with his company as a general agency, and my Dynasty Wealth Partners is my marketing. You can go to dynastywealthpartners.com or dynastybanking.com. Website seems to be down. Barry just told me right now, so I'm going to get working on cracking.
Yeah, that's why I put this one up there. So we appreciate you joining us today. We're out of time. Thank you for coming on. And again, if you're watching us live, or share this recording with your friends and your loved ones. Thank you again, Michael.
Thanks, Barry.
And,
appreciate it.
In the next video.
Good to be with you.
Thank you. Y'all take care.